Talking obviously still about this £50 billion black hole that Rachel Reeves has got, asking our audience what should she do to deal with the £50 billion black hole identified by the National Institute of Economic and Social Research. Is it cutting taxes? Is it or raising taxes? We know that's what Labour will come to. Many people are saying cutting taxes, boosting the economy to get growth. Is it cutting spending? Is it borrowing more, breaking her fiscal rules? I'd love to know from you what you would do. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. If you want spending cuts, what should they be? If you think tax cuts or tax rises, tell us what. Give us a call, as I say, 0344 499 1000. Text 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. And of course, calls are charged at the national rate and text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Claire, what would you do if you were in her position?
I would actually reduce taxes. I would reduce the burden on businesses. You want growth. That's what's going to get your economy going again. I would look at entrepreneurs as the bastions of this country rather than the people that you want to hide away because you don't like it.
Yeah, a bit ashamed of us. I'm not an entrepreneur, we're kidding.
And I would remove the word wealth tax from anybody's vocabulary because that doesn't work either. So I'm so pleased that Rachel Reeves is going to take all of that into account. She's going to enact all of the
she always tells me, she always listens to you.
I bet she does.
Well, I wonder if she'll be listening to my next guest, Mark Littlewood. He's the director of Popular Conservatism and joins us now. Mark, I've got a funny feeling she does the exact opposite of anything you say, and that's a bit of a worry for all of us, isn't it?
It is a bit, isn't it, Julia? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I mean, we can argue about how deep a hole Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer found themselves in when they came to office just a bit more than a year ago. But what we can't argue about is however deep that hole is, they kept digging. So we definitely know that the black hole now is measurably bigger by many billions than what they inherited.
Yeah, although no one really knows how big. I mean, the National Institute says 50 billion, but apparently they said 60 billion last month. It's going to change with the wind, isn't it?
Yeah, as Ronnie Reagan said, $1 billion here and $1 billion there, and before you know it, you're talking about real money, aren't you? But we know it's problematic. I don't think there's any economist who thinks that barring some miraculous black swan event that the public finances are going to return to balance, if you like, automatically because of a fair wind.
Yeah. And if there is a black swan event, it's probably going to be in the opposite direction and make things worse, as we saw with the Ukraine war, with lockdown and the COVID and all of that. I mean, you know,
Exactly.
things that you don't predict tend to be the bad things rather than we've suddenly discovered a wonderful cheap energy that only Britain can have, and now we're a booming economy. I don't think that's happening in the next couple of years.
No, you're quite right, Julia, and governments don't tend to make any kind of contingency provisions on that side of the ledger.
She's got £9.9 billion fiscal headroom, has she not?
Well, conceivably, if everything had stayed the same. But as I say, in terms of contingencies, that's not enough to deal with a pandemic or a banking crisis or a war, is it? So what's to be done? And I think you outlined the three options that any government faces. You try and get more revenue in, you try and stop spending being as high as it is, or you borrow more. I actually think it's only the middle of those three, that's to say spending, which is now a credible option. The problem we've now got with taxes is that we have effectively taxed the British economy to the maximum. And if you start to dial up rates in any sort of way, whether you wanted to put yet another rise on national insurance contributions, whether you want to have a tax on millionaires, whether you want to dial up beer duty or tobacco duty, pick whatever one you want. The problem is you probably won't raise any more revenue and you might raise less revenue because people down tools or leave the country or retire early, all the rest of it. So we have turned the tax dial, not just under this government, I have to concede under the Conservatives as well, to the absolute maximum. There's no further for it to go. You'll blow up the system if you try to dial that higher. Borrowing more, I think, would be extraordinarily dangerous. We now have higher gilt rates, that's to say the cost of government borrowing, because we're not seen as a particularly safe bet, has gone up and up and up.
We're going to have to go to the payday lenders, aren't we, and pay those comedy rates, and then they're going to be sending round the the men with the tattoos and the booklet saying you haven't paid. You haven't paid, Mrs. Reeves.
Probably not quite as bad as relying on loan sharks yet, Julia, to keep the country afloat, but we're heading in that direction.
Yeah.
And we are now spending more just on servicing our debt than we are spending on the entire education budget.
Yeah.
And so if people are less willing to lend us money because they can't really see how Britain's ever going to balance the books, They demand a higher premium on every pound.
And this is the thing, Italy pays a lower interest rate on their debt than we do. That should be a bit of a neon red flashing sign that something's not right. And as you say, look, you can keep on raising tax rates, but you're not going to see extra tax coming in. As we've seen this, all these million, and you can be judgy about it as much as you want. But if the millionaires and billionaires leave, they're not paying tax here, and then we really are in a much deeper hole. As you say, even just ordinary people, ordinary incomes, you're working for that promotion and that pay rise, and then 40% of that pay rise, because you suddenly become a higher rate taxpayer when you are struggling to pay your bills and worrying about putting petrol in the car, and then you're paying 40% in tax plus national insurance. People are just going to say, well, I won't bother. So at the end of the day, we are never going to deal with this if we still are spending so much in terms of government spending, not just on debt, we've got to deal with that, but also crucially welfare. This is the really, really, really big thing we've got to tackle. Net zero, welfare, and all of that. There are just huge sums of money that are going out, not just to pensioners in terms of pensions, but also the working age people of this country who are either not working, on sickness benefits, or working a couple of days a week, and we are subsidising their entire life. Yeah,
that's exactly right. I mean, we are going to have to find some very serious spending reductions, and we need a proper debate about where we're going to find them. And every time you want to dial something up, like, for example, defence spending, which I'm quite pleased we're committed to trying to grow, but that makes it even more important that you find reductions elsewhere. And if you were to look at overall government spending, if you combine welfare spending, including pensions, health and education, you're getting on to about 2/3 of the government budget. Yeah. So it's extremely difficult to find major savings elsewhere. You could close down the Arts Council, for example. But
you can tackle inefficiencies and waste and a bit of that, but it doesn't really touch the sides, does it?
So unless you're willing to take a long, hard look at welfare, health and education, or at least one of those three.
Well, we don't really want to cut education. I mean, I'd rather we spent more on education.
Well, then in that case, you're going to have to cut welfare by even more. So that's fine.
Fine by me.
You can decide I think there's a genuine and honest political debate to be had about what our priorities are. But the problem we've got at the moment is everything is a priority. Yes. And if everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. I mean, I think, in rough and ready terms, we've got to very quickly find government savings of about £100 billion a year. So that would start to get us back into balance. It would give us a little bit of a buffer, not much.
So this
long-term future.
The government sort of welfare £5 billion savings. I mean, that was a joke anyway. It doesn't. Again, this is like someone saying, well, I've got no money, I want to save to buy a home, but I'm going to cut down and not have a Starbucks every day. It's not going to make a difference.
No, exactly right. The surgery required is now enormous. And to stretch that medical analogy, essentially, for 25 years now, we've been borrowing beyond our means. We have not faced up to this for 25 years. And if you allow an illness to go on and on and on for 25 years, it's a lot worse at the end of it than if we'd nipped it in the bud at the start. We've not
absolutely
since 2001.
I'd also want to ask you about this classic story. This is like one in 9 firms say that they have seen staff leave because they've been asked to stop working from home. And this is also the civil services sickness rates have risen after staff were they say forced back to the office, 3 days a week, 2 days a week. But people basically say, I'm going to go off sick. I simply won't agree to a job. And that's all very well. A lot of them might think they can get away with that. But at the end of the day, more and more businesses are saying, this productivity thing is not happening while you lot are all sitting at home, brackets, walking the dog when you're pretending to be on a Zoom. So but what do you make of both of those stats?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit horses for courses.
Well, you're working from home now, aren't you?
I'm working from home now. The staff that I work with are dotted around the country. Actually, an error I made was to invest in getting some office space in central London, and we never used it. So I shut the office. It was a waste of time. It depends on the sort of company that you're running or the enterprise you've got. I would have thought civil servants, you would think the default is they should be 5 days a week in the office because you're working on big projects with a large number of other people that require quite a lot of face-to-face discussion. So if I were to laser focus in on a profession where I would have thought 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, you should be at your desk, the civil services, I think, would be pretty close to the top of that list. But look, companies should compete on this, really.
Yes.
I mean, you said one in 9, 1 in 10 are moving on because there aren't flexible working hours. Well, lots of people move on because they can get a better salary elsewhere. I want employees looking around for the best package, which will be a mixture of how much you're paid, but also how flexible your employer is. That's fine. That's great. That's competition.
And it's up to private companies.
Types of business. Exactly.
Well, again, if they say, look, we don't care, we're getting the best people and we're going to offer you all this, yeah, you can work from the beach, we don't care, but we think you're so good. That's fine. I don't care. Those companies can do that. The trouble is, of course, a lot of them are finding it's not working. Even the Googles and everyone else over the years went, yeah, do you know what? We'd like everyone back in the office, talking to each other, training the young people, having meetings face to face, and creating that team spirit. But there is a knock-on effect for everyone else, because if people aren't in an office and they're sitting at home, okay, the delivery drivers do well with deliveries and everything, and the Zoom company does well. But actually, the bus drivers, the taxi drivers, the local shops, the local restaurants, the local sandwich bar, there's an awful lot of our economy that is based on people leaving their homes occasionally.
Yes, it's as if we're still in lockdown, isn't it, Julia? We haven't actually got over the fact that we're no longer in a COVID lockdown, got so used to doing what we could at home. We thought that was the new normal. It's not the new normal. As I say, I think we should be open-minded about this. If you're, I don't know, a writer, and you're just ploughing your own furrow, or you file a column for a newspaper each day expressing your thoughts, it seems to me you can just as easily do that from your desk at home as a desk
but there's a different kind of
work
working.
Require you to be in close proximity to large numbers of other people, to have conversations with them, to make plans with them, to see the whites of their eyes. And I would think that is particularly true of the public sector.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can see, because we've had flatlining productivity in the public sector for the last 20 years, so something's definitely going wrong, and I'm not sure them all sitting on sofas at home is working out. Mark Littlewood, always good to talk to you. He's the director of Popular Conservatism. Coming up, we're going to take a quick break. Just a quick thought from Claire Pearson on all of that. You do some working from home. I do. I write my song column at home. I don't have a desk in the office. We hot desk here. Literally, I don't have a desk here.
But I think that...
Yes, I'm here.
Some people are capable of doing it, but I wouldn't want to spend all my time doing it, because I quite like to speak to people occasionally.
But particularly young people as well. Like, when do they meet people? It's tragic, utterly tragic.